Hey everyone, Jeff here from Films at Home, and today I've got to rant a little bit about what's going on in the physical media community as it relates to Blu-ray and 4K and why this is really hurting the bottom line for some collectors out there. Hey guys, thanks for coming back to the channel today. So in this video I need to talk about a topic that has been brought to my attention again and is a topic I've sort of talked about before, but in regards specifically to Paramount. And that is this new sort of disturbing trend of new release movies from major studios getting a 1080p Blu-ray release on release day, and then weeks or just a couple of months later we hear about a 4K release that's coming, which then forces people to start questioning buying Blu-rays up front. So this came to my attention not only because obviously there's some Paramount Presents movies that were on Blu-ray and now they're coming to 4K. That is less egregious than what's going on with other titles, because those at least are 12, 18 months apart and they've decided that 4K is now viable and they're going to jump into that. New releases going forward I'm sure will be 4K. But what's happening with titles from Lionsgate, from Warner Brothers, from Sony, it's a real problem. So just recently it was announced that the movie Crimes of the Future, which was a pretty big deal for the hardcore film fans out there, given that this was the first movie that David Cronenberg had done in a very long time, and it was announced that's getting a 4K release. So we all say, yay, that's great. Problem is, just about a month ago they released the Blu-ray, and that was what the major studio put out there. That was the mainstream release, at least in the United States, was Blu-ray only. A lot of people scooped it up because they wanted to see this movie and watch it at home, and a month later a 4K was announced. Now this also happened with a couple of A24 movies that were put out by Lionsgate. We have the movie X, the really fun slasher from Ty West, that had a Blu-ray only release. I bought it myself. A month later, we got a 4K release. The movie Men, the new movie from Alex Garland, who did Ex Machina and Annihilation, another very interesting movie, probably more for the hardcore film fans out there. Blu-ray only release. Just the other day, there's a German release coming to 4K. So what's going on here? Because this keeps happening, and this is not just Paramount. I called them out. It wasn't even fair to them because they really are the least egregious with this. It's Warner Brothers. They put out a Blu-ray of Malignant. 2 months later, you get a 4K release of Malignant. I mean, it's happening everywhere. It's Sony, Warner, Paramount, Lionsgate, Universal, and it's really making collectors out there question whether or not they should be buying anything on release day. I've heard this from multiple people who are now sort of reconsidering if a movie only has a Blu-ray release, do you even touch it? I had some questions about The Black Phone. That's a new horror movie, did very well at the box office, made over $160 million and counting. Great for a low-budget horror movie, but Universal only put out a Blu-ray release. There's some fear from people out there that because it's so successful and it did really well at the box office, we're probably going to get a 4K release at some point, whether it's from Universal or somebody else, and so they're cautious about buying the new Blu-ray. Now what this really does is it hurts everybody, and it hurts physical media that these studios aren't just putting out the 4Ks themselves. And a lot of these 4K discs are coming from boutique labels. They're coming from like Coke Media over in Germany, or they're coming from Turbine Media, or maybe Second Sight picks up a 4K release, or maybe A24 does it themselves as a shop exclusive on A24.com. Like most of these 4K releases when this happens are not coming from the major studio. They're licensing that out to somebody else, some independent boutique label who's taking the time and making the effort to do the 4K release. And I give them huge props for that. Who I'm really blaming this all on is the major players. If we start to have people nervous about buying Blu-ray releases on release day because they're sure that a 4K release might come out 2, 3, 6 months down the line, all that's going to do is hurt physical media, because Universal's going to put out The Black Phone and they're going to look at the sales numbers for The Black Phone on Blu-ray. And if it doesn't sell well on Blu-ray, more because people are cautious and not buying it, and this is now a collector's market, they're going to assume the market wasn't there and you'll never see a 4K release. There's sort of this double-edged sword, because if a bunch of people do buy Black Phone on Blu-ray and Universal does see that this did really well in home video markets, then they have incentive to put out a 4K release, and then that just pisses off collectors who want to have to, go and buy it again on 4K. So it's this double-edged sword where if you don't buy it, they're going to think there's no interest, and if you do buy it, then you might finally signal there is interest, but you're going to have to buy again to get it in your preferred format. So I really don't know what the answer is, other than just like, it's 2022, it's almost 2023. If you have a big name movie like The Black Phone, or a new David Cronenberg movie, or Malignant, which did really well on HBO Max streaming and has a big cult following already, or an A24 movie that has a cult following, put them out in 4K to begin with, because otherwise you're just pissing off collectors and those hardcore enthusiasts who really are still driving this market. Now, if you ask a studio, and Paramount, I'll give them huge props, was kind enough to talk to me and talk me through the process. And their process makes sense. They waited almost 2 years before they started doing 4K more consistently on some of their movies, because the market had to develop. 2 years ago, not many people had 4K TVs. Not as many people had players. It was a smaller market. As the market developed, they shifted into that market. But that took them years. They did it the way I would expect other people to do it, like Criterion, who took years to shift, and now they're into 4K. That makes perfect business sense. The studios will tell you, well, it's resource intensive. You have to grade these things for 4K. It might cost more to manufacture. It can be harder to manufacture 4K discs. Fine. That's all fair. And you have to have a market. They don't want to lose money. If they lose money, we won't get 4K discs. But if you're afraid of losing money, then why are these independent labels who are creating these 4K releases, mostly overseas, still able to stay in business and make plenty of money, even though they have to take on the brunt of the costs, all the way from packaging and unique artwork to gathering special features, putting together booklets and essays, and actually manufacturing the disc, and many times creating the 4K transfer. If an independent label out of Germany can do that, then there's no excuse why Lionsgate, Warner Brothers, Paramount, Universal couldn't do that at the same time. So that's my rant. It's really frustrating, especially because a lot of these movies where this is happening to are definitely movies that are catered more towards those hardcore, film lovers, the cinephiles, the ones who want to collect those A24 movies, the Cronenbergs, these, sort of independent, smaller budget movies, The Black Phone, which is going to be huge for horror movies fans. Like, these are the people that are driving the physical media market right now, and they're not being served in the way that they should be by the major players who are running this market. So props to all the boutique labels out there, whether you're a 5-person team or you're a 500-person team. If you're a boutique independent label, I give you major props for all you're going through to create 4K releases, because honestly, you guys out there are the ones that are driving this market. The boutique labels and the independent labels are driving 4K, and the major studios are really falling behind and letting it slip. So let me know what you guys think about this. If I missed any titles you run into where this has happened, I'd be curious, but I do think this is a bit of a disturbing trend, but one that you really have to be careful of. I mean, at this point, I've said this before, but like, if a new release Blu-ray comes out and you want to buy it, that's fine. But you really either have to be okay with buying it again in 4K or okay with just owning it on Blu-ray. And that's always going to come down to your personal preference and your budget. But for me right now, where I want to have things on 4K, and I am a 4K collector and enthusiast, I'm having a hard time going out and buying anything because I'm just, waiting for the 4K announcement to drop a couple weeks later. And that's really disappointing because now I'm not supporting the initial market, which makes it look like the market is smaller. It's just this horrible double-edged sword. So let me know what you guys think about this. I have a feeling most collectors are going to feel one way, and I have a feeling some casual fans probably don't care as much, and that's fine. But I'd love to hear your thoughts on the channel and share your feedback in the comments, because people are watching this and watch these videos. So we have to make our opinions known, and that's why I make rants like this and make these videos, to share your opinions and share messages I'm getting from you and my thoughts on them. So thank you for watching. Make sure you subscribe so you never miss updates like this and all the latest news and reviews. You can also follow me on social media. Those links are in the description, and check out all my other partners down in the description as well for ways you can support me and the channel. Really appreciate all your support and for sticking through this video. Let me know in the comments what you guys think, but have a great rest of your day. Stay safe and healthy out there, and I'll talk to you guys soon.